So,
Qua trường mới vô điện hả?
as the Supreme Court justice that would replace Antonin Scalia. Now, according to this reporting, last year alone, an organization known as the Wellspring Committee gave $23 million to the Judicial Crisis Network, which in turn spent $7 million on materials opposing Garland. After President Donald Trump was elected, JCN, which is also known as the Judicial Crisis Network, spent another $10 million in pro-Gorsuch ads. So, here's what we know so far about these two organizations. First off, last year was a very lucrative and profitable year, lucrative year for Wellspring, as they raised more than twice as much money than in the previous year, or any previous year. This is largely thanks to one anonymous donor who gave $28.5 million. So we don't know exactly who that donor is because of their status. They are exempt, or they don't have to disclose who their donors are. They're not required to because they're considered a social welfare organization.
Funny.
Yeah. But here's another component of the story that's relevant. Neil Corkery, Neil Corkery, who is listed as Wellspring's president on their tax return, is a former Judicial Crisis Network treasurer, and also his wife Anne also served as Wellspring president. So there's a lot of inner dealings going on over there.
Okay, so let me break this down. So they, in a sense, bought the Supreme Court seat. Now, I say they because we don't know who the anonymous donor is. So here's what we know. And this is exactly what dark money is. They set up an organization that, under tax law, is called a social welfare organization. Do they help the poor, the needy, etc.? No, they don't do any of that. They do deeply political things like buy a Supreme Court seat. But because no one's at home in our government when it comes to the rich and the powerful, they never get investigated. The IRS never investigates them. The FTC never investigates them. So this anonymous donor who wanted to buy a Supreme Court seat gives $28.5 million to Wellspring. Wellspring's nonsense. They don't do anything but buy Supreme Court seats, apparently, because they spent almost all their money on this issue, as Anna just laid out for you, okay? So what do? They then transfer it to the Judicial Crisis Network, who then puts in all this money to influence Republicans to make sure that they block Merrick Garland for a year. Merrick Garland was Obama's appointee. Mm-hmm. Now, normally, the Senate is supposed to give advice and consent. The president appoints, and then they, in a timely manner, have to give advice and consent. And the Republicans said, no, we're not going to do our job. We don't care. We're going to obstruct them for as long as it takes. Now, it turns out that they were, in essence, getting paid to do that, because we've legalized bribery in this country. So, in the form of lobbying, campaign contributions, independent expenditures, all coming from this one guy who wanted to buy a Supreme Court seat, and we let him. So they blocked Garland with $7 million, and then when Gorsuch comes in, they're like, that's the guy we wanted. Mm-hmm. Now, remember, Gorsuch, the one thing he's most known for, not right-wing or left-wing, although he's massively right-wing, no, he's known more for being enormously pro-corporate. So there's a famous case where a trucker was going to freeze to death. Every other judge that saw that case said he's allowed to drive home so he doesn't die. Not Gorsuch. Gorsuch said, no, he must obey the corporation no matter what. And the corporation said, that's our guy. That's our guy. He'll let us actually not murder, that's not fair. He'll let our employees die. He'll let us do anything. That's the guy. That's why Gorsuch was selected in the first place. And the secret dark money is going around influencing these politicians. And it worked. They bought themselves a Supreme Court seat. What kind of an insane system allows this dark money and allows this legalized bribery? We don't have a democracy. These people have captured our government. If you don't get the money out, we're doomed. They're going to buy the next seat. And this one worked. It was a proof of concept.
I know.
They got a great return on investment. For what? Is it because that the dark money donor cares about abortion? Maybe. I don't know. Nobody knows who he is, right? Or it could be that he cares about making sure employees get paid less. He makes sure, or it could be that he wants to make sure there's no work safety regulations because they cut corners on safety and maybe their workers die. But hey, they need to buy a Supreme Court seat, and they did.
They did. And look, I think one of the main reasons why people vote the way they do in general elections for whatever candidates are available is, okay, well, this person is likely to nominate a Supreme Court justice, right? You hear that argument time and time again. And regardless of where you are in the ideological spectrum, this should concern you, because this means that regardless of who you elect as president, we have a system that's so corrupt that Congress can be bought and they can go ahead and be obstructionist when it comes to, the hearings and confirming these individuals as Supreme Court justices. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do as a voter. What really matters is what corporate interests want and, how they can use their influence in the form of millions of dollars to have members of Congress make decisions that they like.
So, give you more context. The Republicans in the last 2 years, not just Merrick Garland, blocked 100 judges that Obama put into place. They only let 22 go through in the last 2 years. In the first year of Trump, they've already okayed 59 justices to go through. So almost three times as much in half the time. Because why? Because some guy decided, hey, I'm going to auction off these seats. Now, do you think that guy's doing it for his health? Or could it be that he is going to financially gain from the decisions that Gorsuch is going to make? So, guess what, guys? And if you're a right-winger and you're snickering like, we bought a seat, we're the corrupt party, that's awesome, congratulations. But remember this, George Soros, Mike Bloomberg, etc. also have a lot of money. So what we've now done is we've started an auction for Supreme Court seats. So the next time there's a Supreme Court seat, one guy on the right wing is going to put in $20 million or $100 million or a bunch of guys, and then some people on the left are going to, and it's all dark money and we can't see it, they're going to put in $20, $100, $200 million, and we're going to have an auction for the Supreme Court seat.
Yeah, again, I know that we're incredibly divided right now, but you have to put your political ideology aside for a second and just think about whether or not you value the democratic process. Because if you value democracy, then this should upset you, again, regardless of what your political ideology is. If this had happened, if the shoe was on the other foot and it was, Democrats doing this, I would be just as outraged by it, because it means that our democracy doesn't matter. It doesn't even work. It's not functioning. Corporate interests, reign supreme in this case.
So sometimes people ask, hey, Wolf backs to get money out of politics, but hey, are you guys really going to get union money out, Soros money out? Of course we are. I don't want Soros buying the elections. I don't want the unions buying elections, and I don't want corporations to buy elections. The right-wingers are always like, politicians are corrupt. I agree with you, brother. I got an important question for you. Who corrupted them? Yeah, Rush Limbaugh never talks about that, right? There's a guy behind the curtain buying these politicians, and usually it's a corporation. And so I care about the corrupted politicians. I also care about the people corrupting them. Get all the money out. Wolf-pack.com. Look, don't want to support Wolfpack, you want to support a different organization, bless your heart. But they're actually fighting to get you change, to bring back democracy. Unfortunately, at this point, America has become almost literally the most corrupt country in the world. Why do I say that? That sounds like an outrageous statement if you're watching television. They tell you everything is totally fine. No, the reason why there's a revolt and a revolution both on the right and the left is because we legalize bribery. All other countries, you have to actually break the law and make sure you don't get caught, and if you do, you'll go to jail. We just said, no, it's okay. You could put in millions of dollars, hundreds, billions of dollars into politicians' campaigns, do it in independent expenditures, do this lobbying, and it's now called legal.
It's crazy. All right. Moving on to some policy issues. Recently, the Senate unveiled their plan for so-called tax reform, which of course is just tax cuts, mostly for the wealthy. And in their proposal, they included a repeal for the Affordable Care Act. Now, the repeal would specifically target the mandate that helps to, keep the premiums low. It mandates that everyone, regardless of your health, would have to buy insurance. Otherwise, you would face a tax penalty when you do file for taxes. Well, Senator Lisa Murkowski, has written an op-ed in response to this Senate proposal. As you know, Murkowski was opposed to efforts to repeal the Affordable Care Act. So understandably, people were wondering whether or not Murkowski was in favor of this new proposal by the Senate, and it seems as though she is in favor. She wrote the following: I have always supported the freedom to choose. I believe that the federal government should not force anyone to buy something they do not wish to buy in order to avoid being taxed. Now, this is problematic, especially when you consider the fact that the Senate doesn't need much in terms of votes in order to pass their proposals. But here is a little bit of good news. Senator Ron Johnson, a Republican from Wisconsin, opposes the bill, saying that it disadvantages small businesses, and Senator Susan Collins from Maine has said that the bill needs to be changed. So there is disagreement on the Republican side in regard to this proposal. But it's interesting that Lisa Murkowski says she's in favor of repealing the mandate, because even though the mandate is unpopular, it is the one component of the Affordable Care Act that it keeps the premiums lower. You get rid of that, healthy people won't buy into the insurance. They won't be subsidizing the older and sicker individuals, and their premiums will go up.
Now, I know that Paul Ryan doesn't understand insurance, the Republicans don't, or they pretend not to. I think actually Paul Ryan's stupid enough that he doesn't actually understand it. And he was like, well, the healthy and the young shouldn't subsidize the poor. But you don't know when you're going to get sick. That's the whole point of insurance. And you could be 24 years old and you think, well, I don't need insurance and I don't want to buy into it. And it's true that 64-year-olds on average get more sick than 24-year-olds. Except, oops, you don't have insurance and then you got sick. What are we going to do, let you die? And the Republicans say, yeah, bootstraps. Ha ha, tricked you, made you get off of insurance, told you didn't need a mandate. Now you're got cancer and you don't have insurance. I guess your answer, hey, you got emergency room, so you'll have some peace and comfort in an emergency room, waiting room, right before you die. Because you're not allowed to get treatment because you don't have insurance. The way that insurance works is that we all subsidize each other in case we get sick. And so now, on a national level, not the local level, but at the national level, never trust a Republican. So, Lisa Murkowski, no, I've got issues with this thing, but I'm going to work behind the scenes to see how much, the different goodies that they're going to give me, so that later I can turn around and go against this and say things like, "Oh, the government should never demand that anyone buy insurance. How outrageous! Really? The government demands that we buy car insurance? You literally cannot drive a car if you don't have car insurance. You will be arrested. You'll be arrested if you're driving without car insurance. Why? Because people who don't get into accidents subsidize the people who do get into accidents. And if you wait till after an accident to get insurance, well, then it doesn't work that way. That's why we have to buy the car insurance ahead of time. What if somebody who has no money that plows into your family and oops, there's no insurance, sad day for you, your loved ones are hurt and nobody's going to pay for them. That's why car insurance is mandated. But finally, look, Obamacare is too complicated. The mandate this, and then that requires this, and the state regulation and that. Medicare for all. Medicare has a 77% approval rating. You know why? Because it works.
Right.
So let us all into Medicare. Problem solved. And then if you want to buy private insurance on top of that, have at it, Hoss. But at least we're all covered, and we don't all have to panic that at any point a loved one can die because they didn't have insurance.
Right, exactly. And people would still have access to insurance, which is the argument that you hear on the right over and over again. But access for them just means it's available to buy if you can afford it. But again, if the younger, healthier individuals aren't helping to subsidize insurance for older, sicker adults, well, the likelihood is that their premiums will be so expensive and unaffordable that they won't even be able to purchase it. So access, it means two completely different things based on who you're having a conversation with. Talking to sincere people, then access means affordable health coverage that people can afford, right? And in this case, to Republicans, access is, it's there, it's really expensive, but it's there. You can access it.
Yeah, no, it's such a stupid rhetorical trick. Hey, guess what, guys? Congratulations. You all have access to Ferraris and Bentleys. You have access to them. You can go buy them if you have the money. You don't have the money? It's not there for you. Hey, don't worry, though. Republicans made access to Ferraris acceptable for and available to everyone. It's preposterous. We're the only developed country that lets people die in the streets that doesn't have universal health care coverage. When they say it's not practical, they mean it's not practical for insurance companies, drug makers, and the privatized corporations that have taken over our government. It is practical for every other developed country. Yes, of course everybody should have insurance. And if you want more on top of that, great. And I'll say one last thing. They say, in those countries you have to wait on long lines. First of all, that's nonsense. It's been debunked 1,000 times over. But guess who else has to wait on lines? We have private insurance. Does that mean it's super convenient and easy? No. It takes me 2 months to get an appointment for a checkup. Oh, wow, I have private insurance. I should be super fast. That's not how it works. All the Republicans want to do is take decision-making away from the public interest and give it to private interest. So they say, it's okay. The government didn't make you wait online. Private corporations made you wait online. Private corporations made you pay a ton of money. The private corporations did all of it. So you know what? Those same problems that you have, it's okay because we're now calling it freedom.
All right, we got to take a break. Let's do that. And when we come back, my personal favorite story of the day, how Democrats are joining the GOP to deregulate the banks. I'll tell you how.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Hassan D. Piker and on Twitter at Hassan the Hun. And this has been The Breakdown. Was that good, guys? Okay. Not enough hashtag use. Hashtag abs, hashtag model, hashtag woke bay. Hashtag one black friend. I'm thinking more rings. I got them here. You need more accessories. Way more accessories. I don't know where to put them. Come on, throw these on. Woke bay, not sleep bay. More sexy, too. When's the last time you posted on Instagram? Too long. Come on, man. No, you need to post at least once an hour. What's the outfit of the day today? Is this what you're going with? No. We need more accessories. We need. This doesn't have anything to do. It doesn't. For your gay audience, man. Yeah, the gays love you, man. Okay. What else? What else do I need to do? You haven't appropriated a culture in a week. Do we have like a kimono or something? Yeah, that looks good on you, dude. Perfect. How many rings you got on? Do you have any more? I got 3 more. Yeah, can we get more rings on this? And when you're done, kiss the ring. Look at the camera. Kiss the ring. Maybe like a little wink.
Islam's role in terrorism and all the Huffington Post articles were doing well. I would think.
How many likes did our last outfit of the day picture have? Only like 10,000. So I think that's where your focus needs to be. I hear you on all the blah 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 social issues. We need to focus on followers.
Kids in Yemen.
We don't care if you sleep at night. Dab, mother. Dab. Okay, dab. There you go. More. Talk about yourself more.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, be more into it.
Instagram. This is important for me. Americans losing access to healthcare coverage.
I hear you. Attack Tommy more.
I've done it. So many. She shoots out of her living room now. It's like punching down now.
We're okay with that. It helps the brand. We made you. We got you verified. You're nothing without us.
So I don't know what else I need to do here.
Just take off that shirt.
That's exactly why Tommy Lauren is stupid. I hate you. I'm Hassan Piker. Follow me on Instagram.
Hashtag Wolfbay.
Hashtag Wolfbay. Please follow me. Please. I have decided that I'm going to get ripped. Okay?
What?
Okay?
Like, physically?
Yeah. Okay. What, you don't believe me?
I 100% don't believe you.
I will get so ripped, here's my prediction, that someone
time tomorrow to let you know how we're
NYT
doing.
will say, Cenk, you've got to stop working out.
We're tired of you winning.
So you don't believe me?
Jake, you don't have time to, like, do your daily duties for the main show.
You don't have time for your daily duties. Because what you guys don't know is how great my muscles already are.
It's absolutely possible. But you can't have Leah run to the food truck to get you, like, 2 different types of grilled cheeses with, like, tater tots for lunch. Like, you can't have that anymore.
Let's see what happens.
You also have to go to the gym regularly.
Let's see what happens. All I'm saying is, let's see what happens. Have I ever been wrong about a prediction? Almost ever. Alright, back in the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna. More passion coming your way in a second. I'm fired up today, and so is Anna. But let's also remember it's the holidays coming up. Holiday Hamby writes in, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to the Young Turks, Wolfpack, Just Democrats, and those tweeting on TYT Live.
Aw.
That is very sweet, Holiday Hamby, appropriately named. Thank you. And happy holidays right back at you. Super Last Thing says, if they truly believed in choice, we should have a public option. Look, the public option, I think, is the bare minimum. But you're absolutely right that is what proves that Republicans don't believe in choice or freedom. Because what's the harm in having a government option for insurance? I mean, if the Republicans are right, it'll be useless and no one will use it. And
Right.
then you get to see how wonderful private corporations are in the field of healthcare. But they're like, no, public option, no public option. Gee, I wonder why. I can't quite tell. So that's what's happening. All right, one little quick note here. So the TYT hats, you sold them out. Okay, God.
I was saying yesterday we're going to run out. Member on the back, okay? ShopTYT.com. It's 10 days of Black Friday sale.
That hat has like a cool gold, like
No, that's what I'm explaining. Come here.
Not just the embroidery. I'm talking about this little like
the little cap thing.
Yeah,
or whatever.
look at that fancy gold thing.
And even Anna compliments stuff in ShopTYT.com.
Yeah, see? By the way, one of our viewers was upset because he or she felt that I was saying too many disparaging things about our. I'm just messing around with you guys, okay? Don't bite the hand that feeds. I bite the hand that feeds all the time, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of biting around. Anyway, so I don't know what's going to happen if you try to order that hat. We will probably reject it. No, I'm kidding. It's probably on back sale now. Back order.
Back order.
That's
yes.
what they call it, back order. So I told you to panic yesterday. Some of you listened, some of you didn't, but you could still get it in back order. And there's a lot of other. I hear today, by the way, they have a holiday sweater. I haven't seen it yet. Hey, so see if we can pull that up later. Okay, a holiday sweater on ShopTYT.com.
Nice.
Can't wait. All right, what's next?
All right. 9 Democrats in Congress are joining a GOP effort to deregulate the banks. Now, as we know, the GOP has been pretty aggressive in trying to scale back Dodd-Frank, which was a pretty mediocre regulatory effort by Democrats under the Obama administration. And of course, it followed the economic meltdown back in 2008. But now some Democrats are saying, no, I mean, maybe we want to make it a little easier for these banks to give out some loans and these questionable mortgages that led to the economic meltdown in 2008. So let me give you the details. Politico reports that 9 Democrats, enough needed to pass the bill with Republicans in the months to come, are co-sponsoring the package, which would scale back rules for many banks. The legislation was negotiated by Senate Chairman Mike Crapo, or Crapo. Crapo sounds right, though, with a group of red state Democrats who have been working for years to ease regulations they say are stifling lending.
Oh, those poor banks. I mean,
Right.
they lend you all the money. It's just that we're stifling it.
This is so bad. And I pay a lot of attention to the housing market and subprime mortgages. Subprime mortgages are already a problem, okay? This is going to lead to subprime mortgages on steroids. Let me give you a few more details on this proposal. The new negotiations were driven by Democrats who are up for re-election in states that Trump carried in last year's election. So these are people who are concerned that they won't get re-elected because these are Trump-loving states. Heidi Heitkamp is an example from North Dakota, John Tester of Montana, and Joe Donnelly. So Virginia's Mark Warner also participated in these negotiations. The most controversial element of this proposal would lift regulations for several banks with more than $50 billion in assets, a threshold that subjects lenders to stricter government oversight under Dodd-Frank. So the idea here was, if a bank is too big to fail, well, we need to keep a closer eye on them so we don't have the same scenario that we had in 2008. We don't want to have to keep bailing these big banks out. So as a result, if it's a bigger bank that has more in assets, they have to abide by stricter regulations. They want to increase the cap from $50 billion to $250 billion. So it would essentially allow more of these banks to get by without having to deal with the stringent regulations. Okay. So Crapo and moderate Democrats agreed to move the threshold to $250 billion over a phase-in period, a change that could help several large banks across the country.
Okay, so let's clarify a bunch of things. So number one, to be fair, the one thing it does not apply is to banks above $250 billion in assets. So those are the mega banks like JP Morgan and Bank of America. It does not apply to them. But banks and credit card companies, et cetera, between 50 and 250 billion are still gigantic. And that's not the only thing that this proposal does, because that's a very important part of it. But the other part is there's a provision in there that would scale back the frequency of the bank stress test. Now, the stress test lets you know, are all the banks, including the biggest banks, are they taking too many risks? So now here the legislators saying, we really have to check that they're taking too much risk. Now, remember, they're allowed to gamble with your depositor money. Before, when we had Glass-Steagall, which was imposed in the Roosevelt era and taken away by Republicans and Bill Clinton, you could not gamble with depositor money. That was separate from your investment bank. Now the investment bank side of the bank can go, oh, well, thank you very much for depositing that. I'd like to use that to gamble on derivatives.
That's right.
And they're allowed to do that. So you need the stress test at a bare minimum to check in to see if they're taking too much risk. And now Republicans and corporate Democrats have decided, do we really need those stress tests?
No, this is a disaster. Because think about it. When you invest your money with a bank or deposit your money with a bank, you do so understanding that a certain amount, up to a certain amount, is FDIC insured, meaning that the government insures it. If something goes terribly wrong, the government will step in and make sure that you get some portion of that money back. Now, right now, I think the number is $250,000, right? So the reason why I mention that is because who do you think is going to be on the line when banks do too many risky things and then they're about to go under? It's the taxpayers. Where do you think the government gets that money to insure your investments in these banks? So this is setting up another financial collapse. This is setting up another big bailout. It's a complete and utter disaster. And look, to me, the relevant part about this is the fact that you have 9 Democrats who were like, yeah, this sounds great. This sounds like something we definitely want to do. And Democrats don't understand why people are leaving the party, why people don't like them, don't trust them, don't consider them the party that looks out for the little guy anymore. It's because of BS like this that goes on.
So let me hit both sides because they wholly deserve it. So the Republicans will go around saying, oh, now if we just had more freedom at the bank level, they could do innovations. But the innovations are what collapsed the economy in the first place. Innovation doesn't help you. The innovation is, what other crazy derivative can I come up with to gamble with your money? So it's preposterous, and almost every Republican at the national level is pro-banks and pro-bailouts. They'll pretend, oh, no, I'm not for a bailout. No, really, what is, as Anna pointed out, what's the FDIC? If there's a banking collapse, the government will protect your money up to $250,000. That's a bailout. Yes, it bails you out, but it allows the banks to gamble with that money because they know that it is government insured. Mm-hmm. So that's preposterous, and the Republicans know it. That's not capitalism. That's not freedom. That's not any of the cute little catchphrases that they use, and they know it. And so when they deregulate the banks, they say, go ahead, gamble with other people's money. We got your back. Not to the Democrats. So they use these 9 corporatist Democrats use the excuse that they're mainly in red states that Trump won. Wait a minute. You think it's a populist position to be pro-giant banks? That you say, oh, well, Donald Trump ran to say, oh, the global financial interests are screwing you over. That's how he won the election. Yeah. And now you think the way to win in red states is to say the global financial interests are awesome? How many ads did Trump run against that? How many times did he show Lloyd Blankfein? How many times did he say Hillary makes speeches to Goldman Sachs and Ted Cruz is bought by Goldman Sachs? Now his cabinet is littered with Goldman Sachs, and he was a goddamn liar, okay? But that's how he won the election, by saying that he's against the banks. He said he would take away tax loopholes for the hedge fund guys. He didn't do any of it, but that's how he won. So Heidi Heitkamp and Joe Donnelly and Mark Warner, who was in a state that Hillary Clinton won anyway and has no excuses, don't pretend you're doing it for reasons of appealing to voters. You're doing it to appeal to donors. You're all bought and you're all corrupt.
So I have a question about that, though, because even though I agree with you in that, Trump ran this populist campaign that was anti-banks and all that, he's also really good at spinning things, and so are Republicans, right? So one way that they spin an issue like this is, when you were applying for that mortgage and you got rejected, it's because of these Democrats and because of these nonsensical regulations, right? Now, keep in mind, the people who get rejected for the mortgages have no business taking out the mortgages, okay? It's these rules are great because part of the problem was there was predatory lending going on where people had no business having a mortgage or taking out a loan were doing so, right? But the way that the Republicans will spin this is, hey, they're screwing with your finances. Democrats are making it really hard for you to take out that loan or to buy a home or to start a small business. So there's that component of it too.
So Anna, it's a great question. But it's funny, for different reasons, I went back and watched a bunch of Trump ads just a couple of days ago from the election, 2016 election.
No, he doesn't talk about easing up regulations at all. He mentioned on the campaign trail a couple of times, but no, when running for office, he talked almost exclusively about how the banks were screwing you and the global financial interests were destroying average Americans' lives, and he'd show like a tattered town and a broken down house and an empty factory, and then he'd show Lloyd Blankfein's face. Lloyd Blankfein and Gary Cohn, the top economic advisor for Trump now, ran Goldman Sachs together. Okay,
amazing.
So, and he'd be like, "Oh, the global financial interest," right? And then once they win, they then switch over. We have to deregulate. The real problem with the Democrats is that they're regulating too much, because they know the country's actually progressive. They see the polls, so they trick people into voting on them based on progressive ideology. And what do the idiot Democrats do? They go in the opposite direction. No. We're not actually progressive. We're Republican light. So please vote for the other guy. And then they get in office and go, donors, what would you like? Wolf-pack.com. Wolf-pack.com. Get rid of all the bums. And sometimes I go on radio or wherever else, or I get a lot of establishment writers yelling at me like, how dare you not protect the Democratic Party? Why the fuck would I want to protect corporate Democrats who are selling us out and working for the banks? Who would be stupid enough to do that?
A lot of people.
And no, but you have to be Team Democrats. Rah. No, I'm for Democrats who are progressives and not corrupt. I can't believe that is a controversial position, but it is. Yeah. A lot of people put on their pom-pom, grab their pom-poms, put cheerleader outfits on. Oh, Democrat. Oh, Mark Warner, you want to sell us out to the banks? Yay, Mark Warner!
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the FCC because there are some updates on that. The FCC has unveiled its plans and efforts to scale back net neutrality. In fact, they are completely getting rid of the 2015 regulations that would essentially force internet service providers to treat every website equally. And as a result, these internet service providers are now free to experiment with internet speeds on various websites as they please. Now, there's another component to this that's relevant, and it is the effort to block individual states from regulating the internet. Internet service providers want to avoid a repeat of what happened this year on broadband privacy when nearly 24 states, 22 of them, proposed legislation to replace an Obama FCC regulation that Congress revoked. Now, PI's Restoring Internet Freedom order says that state and local regulations attempting to regulate broadband in ways that run counter to the federal rules would be preemptive. So if you're wondering how this would work in practice, it's actually pretty simple. If a state attempts to impose its own net neutrality law and a company objects to the FCC, the agency could issue a ruling that could be used in a court battle. Now, this entire case is likely to go to the courts. The FCC's decision will be challenged, and I hope it'll be challenged aggressively. But what PI is doing right now is a complete and utter disaster if you do believe in a free and open internet.
So let's dive in here. So first, the fact that PI calls it restoring internet freedom is grotesque. It's Orwellian. And what he's saying is, well, Obama put in place a regulation. That sounds so scary. And wait, what does the regulation do? He says, it micromanages the internet. Really? We're all on the internet. You're on the internet. It doesn't matter if you're a right wing or left wing. Has it been micromanaged? No. In reality, what the quote unquote regulation did was it set a rule, a government rule, saying that the corporations that control the pipes into your homes cannot regulate the internet. They cannot choose winners and losers, slow down or speed up different websites based on their corporate interests. It said the internet must be free and equal to everyone. It doesn't matter what your political positions are. So he is purposely lying about it in order to serve the people that he worked for before. He worked for Verizon. He'll work for those corporations again. And yes, it's about his financial interests. But I want you to understand something. This is really important because I did a story on this yesterday and I read some of the comments. And you should be furious about it. But
some people want to do something to Ajit Pai. That's nuts. You have to understand, Ajit Pai he's a butler. He's a waiter. He's a servant. Okay? So getting all angry at Ajit Pai is getting mad at the guy, a busboy that cleans your table. Okay?
He's a symptom of this corrupt system.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and in his mind, he's probably like, what? I mean, Verizon gave me all this money, and then I came here, and I got such a nice position, and I like Reese's Pieces, and it's fine. I'm just going to take away your freedom on the internet and then call it freedom. But he's getting paid to do that. So, what you should actually be angry about is a system that allows for this kind of systemic corruption. And it happens, in this case, it happens to be Republicans. It does happen on the Democratic level, as we just explained in another story we did about banking. But here, all the Republicans and Americans for Tax Reform, for example, Grover Norquist, those are the guys who want tax cuts for the rich and deregulation for the rich and for corporations. They love this ruling. They're like, bravo, Pai. Excellent freedom that you've given people, wink. In other words, we now get to set the rules. And so that's a really important thing I need to explain to you. What do regulations means? What does it mean? It just means rules. If you get rid of so-called government regulations, does that mean there are no rules, there's just anarchy? No. What the Republicans are doing in this case, and what they do in a lot of cases, is they just transfer the rule-making authority from the government to private corporations. In this case, the government said, you're not allowed to mess with the internet. And that's why, as you've seen in these years, they haven't messed with the internet, and all the websites work the same, right? Now, what Ajit Pai is proposing is, and the Republicans are proposing here is, no, we now let the corporations make the rules. So the government, which ostensibly works for the public interest and us, theoretically, right, not allowed to set the rules. Private corporations whose only interest is to maximize their own profits now get to set the rules. So then Verizon, Comcast, AT&T can come in and go, okay, great. Now the new rules are, my websites work really well and yours don't. And if you offend my corporate interests, my advertisers, my consumers, I'll either, completely block your website, because if I slow it down enough, none of the videos will work.
Right.
Most people won't be able to load the articles. You won't be able to see the website at all, in effect. Now, if you're a right-winger, well, why would, hey, the Republicans who claim to be my representatives are on this side of you. They should be. This is an excellent example of how they lie to you, and they're not at all on your side. They're on the side of their donors. So, in this case, the Republicans get paid by those companies to do their bidding. Okay, but in reality, it's not like they mind the regulation. They know the corporations are going to put regulations in. And so why would the corporations be against the right wing? Here, so for a lot of the right wing, they think Muslims are the problem, right? Oh, we need to profile them. They're uniquely dangerous, etc. You know who doesn't agree? Multinational corporations. You know why? And this is, in my opinion, is a great thing about corporations. But I know the right wing won't agree. Because there's 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. Those are their consumers. They don't want you to offend those Muslims. So if you start saying things against Muslims, oh, look at that. Your website got slowed down because you were costing me money.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to say things against Latinos. I haven't done the math on it, but around 1 billion Latinos or so, right? Oh, your website's really slow. What can I do? Oh, I want to be able to bring in immigrants for cheap labor. You're opposed to that? Oh, your website's so slow. So slow. Sorry about that. If you allow private corporations to set the rules, they will set the rules, obviously. Anyone with a half a brain knows this. They will set it for their own interest, not for your interest.
No, Cenk, but the free market will decide. The free market that, by the way...
But there is no free market.
There is, exactly. So, in order to have a fully functioning free market, you need access to information. You need an informed public that knows what's going on. And where do you think people are getting their information from right now? In some regard, it's kind of scary with all the fake stuff that's out there, but the internet has democratized information where you don't have to go to an Ivy League school to educate yourself. You have every fact, every bit of info you want to know at your fingertips. And if you have multinational corporations in charge of what you can and can't see, that's a really dangerous place to live in, especially when you consider the fact that we're already so incredibly divided as a country. I see this as making things a lot worse. You need the internet, just like you need colleges, to be a free marketplace of ideas, okay? And right now, I'm really concerned that these giant internet service providers, many of which are media conglomerates as well, right? Like they own a bunch of media, will now decide, like, you only get to see certain things. You only get to be informed by our perspective, and anything that disagrees with our perspective will be slowed down to the point where it's inaccessible. It's just a disaster.
If you're a progressive, you should hate this because it's actually against freedom. And the internet is one thing we can use to fight back against the establishment. If you're a right-winger, you should hate it more, to be honest. Because Verizon owns Huffington Post, and they own AOL, and they own Yahoo, and AT&T is going to buy Time Warner, or they're trying to buy Time Warner, which has CNN, etc. They're willing to make deals with those outlets because they don't offend their customers and their consumers. They don't have any deals with Breitbart, because Breitbart offends their consumers day in and day out, right? You guys are the first to go, okay? And so when they come for you, I will actually defend you. And that is what we're doing, right? Because they will come for everyone, because their goal is not for happiness or freedom and unicorns. Their goal is maximize profit for their own interest. And again, Ajit Pai is not the guy to get super angry about and say you're going to do terrible things. So that's a bad, terrible idea. Yes, go to the FCC December 14th. Yes, protest. Go every day to protest. Use political means to protest. Here, I'll give you the address again. Let's go to graphics 30 through 31. Federal Communications Commission is at 445 12th Street Southwest. You should stop by at all times. For God's sake, be civil. Be forceful in your political protest, but be civil. Call them 1-888 call FCC, and then Ajit Pai's email is actually on the website. That's where we got it. Ajit.pai@fcc.gov. By the way, they got 22 million comments on this rule. They never tell us which way those comments went.
I think
almost all of them were against this rule, from the right wing, the left wing, and the middle wing, right? But they're like, oh, we got 22 million comments, and then we threw them in the garbage. How many of them were against this rule? I'm not going to tell you because it's really embarrassing. And finally, last thing. Why did the Obama-era rules, and they make it sound serious, oh, right wing, it's okay, I'm on your side. It's an Obama-era rule, that's so scary. Why did it choose to regulate the internet service providers as a utility? Because they wanted to make sure that those guys couldn't put these rules into place. So think about it this way. There's one pipe going into your house, a public utility like electricity or water. If the government doesn't regulate it, they go, oh, you were paying $80 for your water. It's now $1,000 a month. But wait a minute, I can't. That'll squeeze everything else out. I'll have to be basically working for the water company. That's right. It's the only pipe going into your house. Do you want water or don't you want water? Oh, you're thirsty, aren't you? $1,000. That's why the government has to say, no, you're the only pipe going in. You can't charge $1,000.
You're giving them some ideas with our water.
No. And then electricity. Oh, you like electricity. Oh, you like heating in the winter so you don't die. It used to be $65. It's now $2,000. And then, libertarians will say, well, if they charge that, most people will die. Well, first of all, examine that sentence for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they will realize not to use that electric company. They don't have a choice. That's the only electric company. And the electric company won't set it at $2,000. They will set it at exactly the price at which you will be crushed, but can barely pay it, because they will maximize profits. And like those companies, there's only one pipe going into your house with the internet, and almost no choice across the country. It's basically a monopoly in almost every market. Okay. And so, if the government says, hey, have at it, Hoss, whichever internet provider is giving you that one pipe, they go, great. I got the consumers who are exactly where I want them, captured and at my disposal, and I've got all the websites and everybody else going on the internet also at my mercy. Thank you very much, government, for letting me set the rules for only my benefit. And so that's what Ajit Pai, the FCC, and the Republicans are doing today. And that's the reality.
All right, let's take another break. When we come back, some updates on Roy Moore and also Representative John Conyers, who is also facing sexual assault allegations.
Before we eat, I want to go around the table and everyone say what they're thankful for.
I'll start. I'm thankful for having such a good friend like Mary in my life.
I'm thankful for all this delicious food and sharing it with all of you. I'm thankful for marijuana. I love marijuana so much.
I'm thankful for all the good gigs I got this year.
I'm #thankful for real Donald Trump for not starting World War III.
I'm thankful that someone else cooked all this food.
Yeah. Arthur, what are you thankful for? Arthur? Arthur? Arthur?
What's going on, bud? I can't think of anything. I don't know what I'm thankful for. I feel so stupid. You're not stupid, Arthur. It'll come to you. I just can't think of anything. Hey, it's okay. Deep breaths. Just look at me. Oh, I think I have an idea. I'm really thankful for TYT's 10-day Black Friday sale. I'm gonna save big on my favorite TYT merch, including limited edition tees and hats. Oh, so not our friendship then? Consumerism? Oh, got it. What did you say? Hey, Jack, what's up?
And my VCR keeps flashing 12, but it's not even midnight. Go. I went to Kentucky Fried Chicken when I first got my license, like 17 years old or 70, 80, whatever it was. And I'm driving, I think, my dad's Oldsmobile, and I parked it in a place where there was two cars next to me, a really tight spot, and a car behind me. I don't even know how I got in there because I'm a terrible driver. Back then, I was an even worse driver. And on the roads, I'm okay, but in parking spots, I have terrible spatial reasoning, and I'm a mess. And on my way out, I hit all three cars at once. I broke all records, okay? So I went, as I'm backing out, I went, boom, oh shit. And this side hit that car, this side hit this car, and the back hit the third car, okay? And I got stuck. I didn't know how to get out. Like, I went, okay, this, and then I'm like, no, and then, right? And then finally I had to stop, go inside the KFC and go, I'm sorry, I hit a bunch of your cars. They're like, what do you mean a bunch of your cars? I'm like, I don't know. Wow, there's a B? Yeah. I'm like, I hit three cars. I don't know. So you guys gotta come help me, okay? Okay, so one, my bad. Really sorry about that. Okay, number two, can someone take my car out? Because I don't want to keep hitting your cars, and I'm incapable of taking it out of this spot. Young Turks. Let me read a couple of tweets for you guys. Control Left says, deregulate banks. Am I caught in a time loop? Do these people have collective amnesia? Seriously, what the fuck? And yes, the answer is they do, and they're paid to have that amnesia. It's like when they kept saying on TV nonstop, Hillary Clinton is inevitable. She can't lose. We just saw her lose in 2008. Nope, it's impossible for her to lose. Now, the Democrats who've been yelling about how banking deregulation has ruined the economy, now a significant chunk, over 20%, have flipped over and are like, no, banking deregulation is awesome. Why? Because I got paid to forget 2008. Political Matthew writes in, the Democrats are paid to lose, the GOP's paid to win. That's right. Holdcraft writes in, that's like referring to deregulating the banks. That's like deregulating the internet. Oh, wait, they're going to do that too. Exactly. And finally, the Mad Lib says, Adam Smith should have defined the invisible hand as a thing that siphons money from the peasant class, us, and jacks off the oligarch class with it. Because that's basically how capitalism works now. And it's not supposed to be, in my opinion. You know, you've probably heard me defend capitalism before. Corporatism is like Oedipus. It immediately goes to kill its father, capitalism, and fuck its mother, democracy.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and that's what it does. Once
dirty.
It is, but it literally is dirty. Once you allow these corporations to take over like we have, they will go to kill all competition, because competition is a threat to them. Capitalism is a threat to them. So this is a long conversation, but you know, no matter how you feel about capitalism, it's that's not the heart of the issue. The heart of the issue is that we have let these corporations run amok. We have created these robots and let them take over our government, and that's what's truly insane. Okay, all right, let's keep going.
All right. Leakers have spoken to reporters at Politico and have disclosed the fact that behind the scenes, Trump privately doubted Moore's female accusers, which isn't surprising considering some of the statements that Trump made publicly yesterday. But according to Politico, during animated conversations with senior Republicans and White House aides, the president said he doubted the stories presented by Moore's accusers and questioned why they were emerging now. I just want to quickly address the last part of that, where people can't understand why women are coming. Are they living under a rock? There are women coming forward in various cases that impact various professions. There is this opening of the floodgates where people feel comfortable for the first time to talk about what they've gone through with sexual harassment or sexual assault, in some cases rape. So that's why women are coming out.
Well, look, I want to add something to that.
Yeah.
That is undoubtedly true. There's an extra element here, and both things are at play. Yes, during a political campaign, the other side does what is called oppo research. They look at their opposition and they try to find out dirt on them, and then they go and tell the press. And the press, if they can verify it, will then run that opposition research. For example, before the election, no one ran the oppo research on Trump, the Russian dossier, because they couldn't verify it. Afterwards, BuzzFeed ran it, and because they thought it was verified enough. Whether you agree with that or disagree with that is a different story. And that oppo research was initially started by Republicans in the primary against Trump. So now, in this case, some people think, and look, I don't mind their internal civil war and punching each other in the face, but our job is to be honest with you. I don't think that it was the establishment Republicans, because if they had that oppo research, they would have released it during the primary when they were supporting loser strays. They don't want to lose that seat in Alabama. Losing a seat in Alabama is disastrous for Mitch McConnell and the establishment Republicans. If they had it, they would have released it in the primaries.
harassment and who isn't, and they abandoned me even though I would commit random sexual assaults on women because I'm powerful. So I hate them forever. So he's like, I don't want to do the same thing to Roy Moore. So I did sexual assault. He did sexual assault. I don't want to abandon him. He needs me now, so I'm going to ride to his defense. That's fine. And if you're in Alabama and you vote for Roy Moore, you are voting for being pro-child molestation. You are. Just raise your hand and admit it. Say, look, I think that him not liking Muslims and whoever else I don't like is more, and him giving tax cuts to the rich is more important to me than the fact that he sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl, that he tried to rape a 16-year-old girl.
I think he's going to get elected.
No, Doug Jones, that's what I thought too. Doug Jones now running much tougher ads, calling him basically the child molester that he is. So now there's some chance that he could lose. Look, just like Trump, and a lot of Alabama Republicans love Trump, it's okay. Just raise your hand when you go in to the voting booth and say, I am voting for the child molester because I think that's more important. Just be clear about it. That's all.
All right. Well, there's another component to the story that I thought was interesting, and it has to do with women in Alabama and how they are reacting to the accusations against Roy Moore. The Daily Beast spoke to several women in Alabama who are now campaigning on the Democratic side, even though they have had a lifetime of voting for Republican candidates in their state. Now, this has been a reaction to sexual assault and sexual harassment allegations toward Roy Moore, who is the Senate candidate looking to fill Jeff Sessions' seat. And really interesting comments coming from some of these women. One of them is Walton Foster. She is a Republican and a Christian, and Foster did vote for Luther Strange in the special election primary and said that she plans to cast her ballot for Jones in the general. She considers Roy Moore an abomination. Here is one of her quotes. She says, "Our historically Republican-leaning suburb is covered with Doug Jones signs. I have seen one for Roy Moore." He is more about, speaking about Roy Moore, he is more about his personal agenda and less about what is good for the state of Alabama. He does not seem interested in working with anyone. He has refused to debate and defend his positions publicly. When you add the 9 accusations, 9, it's clear he is unfit for office. So, look, a couple women talking to the Daily Beast doesn't say anything, right? Those are anecdotes. But what are we noticing in the polls? Well, there was a Fox News poll done. As you know, Fox News is by no means a liberal organization. And what they found was that Doug Jones is actually leading. So the poll that was released last Friday showed that Jones had an 8-point lead over Moore, 50% to 42%. Much of it owed to his lopsided support for women, especially young women voters. So here was the most interesting outcome of that Fox News poll. They divvied up the female voters based on age, and they found that young voters disproportionately favored Doug Jones over Roy Moore. He had a monster 49-point advantage among women under the age of 45.
Yeah, look, the young, even in Alabama, are on our side. And a lot of the older males in Alabama, and they keep saying, they literally say it. We've covered a number of politicians in Alabama saying, what's the big deal? Even if he did do it, I mean, some of those girls look really pretty. Oh. So now, which 18-year-old or 25-year-old woman, I don't care what party you're in and where you live, is going to say, yeah, I think a 32-year-old molesting a 14-year-old is perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. They're not going to say that. So, on the other hand, they hate liberals, Alabama Republicans. So, and by the way, let me be clear about this. I get that you're in a conundrum if you're in that category. Because, listen, I always do shoe on the other foot, right? Mm-hmm. So, would I want to vote for Ted Cruz? Under no circumstances, right? So, but if he's running against Harvey Weinstein, and Harvey Weinstein is a purported liberal, right? There's no way in the world I'm going to vote for Harvey Weinstein. I'm not going to go into a voting booth and make Harvey Weinstein a senator.
Yeah.
No way. Under no circumstances. Even if he's running against the most loathsome Republican, Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
So for the people who actively go in to vote for Roy Moore, I mean, I'm not surprised that women under the age of 45, no matter what party they belong to, cannot stomach that.
Right.
That's the correct answer.
Yeah, and it's crazy how tribal things have become. I mean, to the point where in Trump's head or in some Republicans' minds, voting for a Democrat is worse than voting for someone who's been accused by 9 women of molesting them, sexually assaulting them. Some of them were teenagers at the time. It's unbelievable to me that, your political identity is more important than the lives of innocent people who've been victimized like this.
And one last thing, especially in a situation where part of your political identity is based on family values.
Come on.
So when your political identity is based on family values, and this guy has shredded family values, for you to turn around and go, still don't care. At least be honest with yourself and realize that you don't actually care about family values. You've just become part of a team, a cult almost, and you'll vote for that person under all circumstances. And by the way, we get a lot of heat because we won't back Democrats unilaterally and under any circumstance. Some Democrats get furious at that. Why aren't you on our team no matter what? Because I have a brain, and I'm allowed to make human judgments about whether this person actually represents us or not.
Mm-hmm.
So make a judgment in Alabama. Does Roy Moore represent you? And if he does, okay, then vote for him. I feel terrible for you, but go ahead. But then, understand the consequences of your decision.
Yep. All right. One more story that's kind of similar to this. Michigan Representative John Conyers is now facing a House Ethics Committee investigation following 2 accusations of sexual harassment and his admission that he paid a relatively small settlement to one of the women that he fired allegedly for denying his advances. So the committee is aware of public allegations that Representative John Conyers Jr. may have engaged in sexual harassment of members of his staff, discriminated against certain staff on the basis of age, and used official resources for impermissible personal purposes. That was a comment from Representative Susan Brooks and Representative Ted Deutsch. Is it Deutsch?
Yes.
Yes, Deutsch. In regard to this investigation that they're launching. Now, when it comes to that settlement, Conyers paid his former employee more than $27,000 from office funds after she made the harassment accusations, listing the payments as employee severance. So he is standing by that claim that he fired this person, but, that money was not a settlement. It was the severance that he wanted to pay her.
I'm totally reserving judgment on this. And by that, I'm being quite literal. It might turn out that Conyers did it, and if they show that, they've got the evidence to back that up, then he's got to go. He's going to retire anyway. But, they should definitely do the investigation. They should figure out what happened. I'm not one of those guys who's like, no, don't investigate. We got people on my side. No, do the investigation, find out. But it might also be that he didn't do it. So he says, quote, I expressly and vehemently denied the allegations made against me and continue to do so. $27,000 could be a severance payment. That is a normal size severance payment.
Mm-hmm.
And so there could be an internal disagreement in the staff. And he says, well, I'm not admitting to any wrongdoing, but yeah, I'll give you a severance. And maybe the person worked for them a long time. Maybe they worked for him a short time. Maybe he did it. Maybe he didn't do it. We don't know yet. So I'm not looking to block any investigation, but I'm also not looking to prejudge Conyers on something he says he clearly did not do. And there is, like, for example, there's been 1,000 cases where people, like Bill O'Reilly and Roger Ailes, giant settlements, $9 million settlement. What was one of them? Was it $30 million? Like, nobody's giving those kind of settlements if they didn't do it. A $27,000 thing might literally be a severance payment. So it's not determinative at all. And yes, in some cases, before things are adjudicated, the case seems fairly clear. And you can take whatever political leaning you want. Harvey Weinstein, a liberal, clearly did it.
Yeah.
Okay. Charlie Rose, in my opinion, clearly did it. Brett Ratner clearly did it, in my opinion. These are all my opinion. Roger Ailes clearly did it. Bill O'Reilly clearly did it. John Conyers, what evidence do you have of anything?
Yeah, usually when, accusers come out against a liberal, they take ownership pretty quickly, right? So Franken did that. There was clear evidence in the Franken case with that photo. And, the same goes with Weinstein releasing that ridiculous statement and apology. In this case, it's interesting because Conyers denies it so vehemently. And you're right, the number or the amount paid to the woman is, something that's consistent with severances. So I don't know either. What I do know is I like that there's an investigation into this, right? And I hope that they find out what the reality is and what the truth is. I think for far too long, people were uncomfortable coming out to talk about it. And even if they did, no action was taken. So this investigation is important, and I hope that it, finds what we're looking for.
And by the way, the fact that he vehemently denies it doesn't prove anything either.
Right, I know.
Trump and more vehemently denied. No, I mentioned the same thing. That's why we're saying investigation, in this case, without any evidence at all, I don't think it makes any sense to jump to conclusions.
Okay. All right. We got to take
a break. Look, there's more amazing stories, including the very next one we're going to do, which actually is about Weinstein and how he bought off certain members of the press. That is an amazing story. So don't miss that. It's one of the most revelatory stories I've seen in a long time. Okay, and guys, if you didn't hear earlier, and if you're wondering, hey, the Conyers story, etc., why are we talking about Jordan? I will have a statement about Jordan Chariton at 8:05 Eastern tonight. So we're going to do the regular show. There's a reason why it's at that time. I'm not trying to come over here. No, this is just I'm briefly mentioning to you at 5:05. I'm going to make a statement about that, and that'll be live for everybody after the show is over. Okay, so we'll be right back with how the Weinstein tried to buy off reporters. All right, post-game here in Studio B. It's a green screen magic of internet television.
A lot of condom breaking stories.
Any conversation that starts with marriage is an interesting thing deserves a little bit of...
When the kid cries, perhaps that's that is an opportunity to do so. It's an opportunity to do so.
Yeah, parenting is, you cry, you're gone.
Oh my God. I love that video.
Yeah, Ben, I got a great eye. Shoot. You're like, my mouth was open, she sneezed in my eye.
I used to have donut tower next to my desk. Yeah, I'll dress up like a girl.
I sound confident now, Anna. When we're off the air, I'm going to be like, how is this going to work?
When you get literally asked why 21 straight times.
Yeah.
Like, at some point, you're fucking with me now, right?
So I dumped the kids off at her mom's, and I drove down to La Jolla for a
Get
dinner.
out, kids.
They're like, but Daddy, no.
Why? What do you mean, why? You asked me to look at you. You did it. You brought it up. You know you're doing it. Why? I don't know why. I was reading. It's lovely. And here's what's different. Like, it is a different feeling. Everybody says this, but it's 5:11 when we're shooting this. I can't wait to go home. Like that. I can't wait to see it.
What you guys do is allow us to be open and honest, and we don't have to worry about censorship. We don't have to worry about sponsors telling us what we can and can't say. We're accountable by our audience and our audience only, and I absolutely love that. That's the best part about being a member. We love you guys.
Hey, Jack, what's up?
And I'm reading some of the comments on a YouTube video I did. What the cuck? Go.
Can you believe this hysteria about Black Friday?
Oh, yes. How do we convince the middle class that discounts on new televisions outweighs their utter lack of need for them?
Exactly. And the products on sale are inferior, derivative versions of what they would buy throughout the rest of the year. Cheaper materials, shoddier workmanship, preserve the profit margin.
And those poor retail zealots, they camp out overnight only to trample each other at dawn for coffee makers and Xboxes?
Commercialism makes me sick.
Oh, I don't know.
What were you saying?
Just that Shop TYT is offering some great Black Friday deals. 35% off hoodies and fleeces, hats too, plus other sales all weekend long.
Yes, officer, there's a strange woman on my property. No, I don't know if she's armed. I am calm. Something about hoodies. I think it's like gang related. Please, just hurry.
Don't miss 10 days of Black Friday happening now. Sign up for our email list or just check it out at shoptyt.com.
Look, we're doing interviews over there at youtube.com/TYT interviews, and we've done some amazing ones recently. So now, of course, you know the person most widely considered to be the most progressive senator is Bernie Sanders. Why not back him during the 2016 primaries? Why be a Democrat at all? And we're in the time where you cannot, in good conscience, sit on the sidelines of history in 2017. Back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Members of the day are Chris Hale and Linda Knowles. Thank you guys for supporting the show, and you get the whole 2-hour show commercial free, of course, tytnetwork.com/join. Members also get extra shows, including Aggressive Progressive, which you'll get a little bit later this week, and Old School. We're going to do that live at 9 o'clock Eastern today. It's Old School, just me and Ben, right before Thanksgiving. And we're going to talk about classic old school stories like underrated food, and we're going to talk about gaslighting. What is gaslighting, and what are my thoughts on it? Okay, so those are just, if you know old school's fun, relaxed conversations like in the old radio days. So members get all that at tytnetwork.com/join. Okay, two tweets for you guys. The Murphy writes in, white Republican accused of sexual misconduct, Trump denies and still supports him. 5 Black/Latino men proven innocent for rape. That's the Central Park 5. Trump wants to bring back the death penalty, one more notch in racist column.
That's after they were proven innocent.
That's the amazing part. He wanted the death penalty for them when they were first accused. He took out a full page ad. After they were proven innocent, decades later, he said no, they should still be punished. After they were proven innocent and we caught the actual guy who did it with his DNA. He's like, I don't care. I mean, what a monster. What a fucking monster. And then on the other hand, you have a child molester, and he's like, oh, good. He's going to give me, but he's going to vote for money that goes into my pocket. I don't care that he molested your kids. Oh, he's such a monster. All right. Riley Grady says, Roy Moore, if he gets elected, we can just refer to him as the predator from now on. Anyway, I hear you. I always screw this up. Bill O'Falafel on YouTube Super Chat writes in, I stood outside an NFL stadium with a Bernie would have won sign yesterday, and I got called every derogatory word you can think of. Probably got it from the Hillary people as well as the Trump people.
Yeah, exactly.
But I admire your courage. All right, Anna, what's next?
All right. New evidence indicates how and why Harvey Weinstein worked with certain tabloid media outlets in order to smear women and journalists who would come out against him with sexual assault allegations. Now, this is something that Ronan Farrow has really brought light to, and he's done really excellent reporting here. But I wanted to share the story with you and outline exactly who Harvey Weinstein worked with and how he managed to create these campaigns to smear women and journalists who might come out against him. Now, Weinstein had hired private security agencies, including one called Black Cube, run by former Israeli intelligence officers, and another called PS Ops in Los Angeles, to keep tabs on actresses and journalists. He also enlisted journalists in his campaign to investigate and discredit not just accusers, but other journalists, specifically other journalists who would have the audacity to do reporting on, his predatory behavior.
So I'm going to say two quick things here before we get to tell you the rest of the story. One is that you know that you might be doing something shady if you're going with a company called Black Cube. Like, these guys have a way of just, like, saying what they are, like Blackwater. You remember? They're like, who names themselves Blackwater? Right? And so these guys are Black Cube. Don't worry, we're going to do something shady. The other guys are PS Ops, like PsyOps.
Yeah.
Like, here, we're over here. If you want to do shady well, I don't want to say criminal. You don't know. They might be perfectly legal, and they're probably careful about that stuff. But if you'd like to do shady stuff, we named ourselves. It's like naming yourself Shady Incorporated.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, now, by the way, you got to know that Weinstein is not the only person doing this. First of all, Trump has used these same National Enquirers you're about to see, because National Enquirer is part of this story. But Trump has also used them to smear opponents, including Republican opponents. Remember when the National Enquirer ran the story about how Ted Cruz had 5 mistresses? Like, 5 women would sleep with Ted Cruz. There's more chance that the National Enquirer story about aliens landing is correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyway, and a lot of Hollywood does this. When journalists go to report on any kind of sex scandal or anything else, they will send these guys out to threaten other journalists.
Yep.
So, but now we get to find out, because of the Weinstein scandal, how it works.
Exactly. So let me give you some context before I get to specific email exchanges that Weinstein is included in. So one of the efforts was to smear Rose McGowan. And apparently it was discovered that Rose McGowan had some sort of relationship with a director named Robert Rodriguez, okay? Robert Rodriguez was married at the time to a woman named Elizabeth Avilon. And Weinstein knew that, and he realized that they had divorced and decided to hire opposition researchers and certain reporters to kind of dig into that issue and figure out if they can get some, bad information or information that showed Rose McGowan in a negative light. And they did manage to do that. So there was a reporter named Andy who reached out to Elizabeth Avilon, again, who was married to Robert Rodriguez. They're now divorced. And there was a rumor that he had some sort of affair or sexual relationship with Rose McGowan. Now, one of Weinstein's foot soldiers was Dylan Howard, the chief content officer of American Media Inc., which publishes tabloids, including the National Enquirer, where Howard also serves as editor-in-chief. So, all of a sudden, this reporter named Andy, who is associated with all of this, goes to talk to Avalon and starts, pushing for answers regarding Rose McGowan's character. That information is then relayed back to Howard, and Howard tells Weinstein, I got some dirt. In one of the email exchanges, Howard says the following: I have something amazing, Howard gushed in an email to Weinstein. My guy spoke with Elizabeth Avalon. She is a good talker. He went on to describe unflattering things Avalon had said about McGowan during her conversation with this reporter, Andy. Right? Now, we have screenshots of these exchanges between Weinstein and Howard. Here's an example of it. Weinstein responded to that email by saying, this is the killer, especially if my fingerprints are not on this.
Oops.
And Dylan Howard responded, they are not, and the conversation between you and I is recorded. I don't know how that's a good thing, but...
Yeah, I think that he's saying, like, we have mutual dirt on each other, so we're cool.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's my interpretation of it. But don't worry, your fingerprints won't be on this. As we just now talk about it on a national level.
I know.
Apparently your fingerprints were on it, Harvey. And that's the thing. You get into bed with guys who are doing shady stuff. At some point, they're going to turn the shady stuff against you.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. They never explain who Andy is. Andy's a guy that they, contract out to, who poses as a reporter, and he gets you to confide in him.
Yeah.
And she keeps asking, like, Avalon, poor woman, she's like, I don't want to say bad things about my husband. I want this to be off the record. I don't want to talk about this.
But to her credit, she didn't want to say negative things about anyone, including McGowan, even though, it was clear in some of her statements that she's not a fan of McGowan because of this, alleged relationship that Robert Rodriguez, her ex-husband, had with her. But nonetheless, she's like, look, I have a great relationship with my ex-husband. I have 5 kids with him. I care about my children. I don't want to say any negative things, but this so-called reporter, Andy, was so persistent. He was relentless that he got a little bit of a negative comment from Avalon, and that was the so-called, like, oh, this is the killer,
Yeah. So he apparently works on behalf of Andy does, on behalf of Coleman Rayner, and that's a Los Angeles-based news and photo agency that works on stories for various tabloids. So, but remember, this story was not necessarily going to go to print. They just wanted information that they could use to maybe even threaten her and say, hey, we know that this stuff about you. So these guys pose as journalists when they're actually in an unofficial way looking to blackmail people.
Yeah.
Now, legally, that might not be blackmail, but they're trying to get dirt on them so that a powerful person who has done terrible things to them can cover up their crimes. And in the case of Harvey Weinstein, it was crimes. And so this is how they, in a lot of ways, ruin journalism. And then they use it to threaten other journalists that are actually doing their jobs.
Right, absolutely. And by the way, so again, going back to the question that you hear over and over again from people who are suspicious of any and all allegations that are made, this is the reason why women don't speak up. Right? This is one of the reasons why women don't speak up. There's just so much, retaliation that can be taken against them if they are, accusing someone who is in a position of power. You're talking about Harvey Weinstein. He has every resource at his disposal. And now we have evidence of how he would smear people and threaten them so they wouldn't speak up, including journalists.
So some people say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory.
But there's evidence.
Right. No, that's what they would say in the past. Like, oh, why would anybody want to smear a victim? Because their ass is on the line, and they have a lot of money and power, so they can hire Black Cube and I'm a Bad Person Incorporated.
Yeah.
They go, and then, yes, it is an actual conspiracy. They work together to make sure they smear any woman that comes out. That's why they don't come out, because somebody will go to destroy their careers and their lives if they do. Now you know the reality. And so all of these guys, whatever their political proclivity is, whether it's Weinstein or Trump, such bad guys who go do this to just, not only did they do the scummy things in the first place, then they go to destroy their victims.
Right. To protect themselves. So they can continue victimizing other people who are not in positions of power. It's disgusting.
And now you know how power works.
Yep. All right. Larry Nassar, the notorious USA gymnastics doctor who has now faced countless allegations of molestation, has pleaded guilty in court. Now he is also facing a federal trial involving possession of child pornography. But in this case, it has to do with the gymnast that he victimized throughout his tenure as a USA gymnastics doctor. Nassar pleaded guilty on Wednesday to 7 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct and admitted in a Michigan court to using his position to sexually abuse underage girls. A number of women have come forward, including Gabby Douglas, the most recent accuser, and I'm forgetting her name right now. I apologize. Ali Reisman is another example. So it's nice to finally see a little justice in this case. And he also issued an apology during this trial that I want to show you. Let's take a look.
I think this is important that what I've done today to help move a community forward and away from the hurting and let the healing start. That's a couple of things that I could do to stop the hurting is this. And I think that's important for all those involved, and that I'm so horribly sorry that this was like a match that turned into a forest fire out of control. And I pray the rosary every day for forgiveness for their I want them to heal. I want this community to heal. I have no animosity towards anyone. I just want healing. It's time. So I guess that's the biggest thing is we need to move forward in a sense of growth and healing. And I pray that.
What do you mean you have no animosity towards anyone?
Yeah. Like no one cares about your animosity.
Yeah, there's 125 victims. A lot of them underage. A lot of them under the age of 13. No one cares who you have animosity towards. And the Judge Rosemary Aquilina made a great point. She said, it may take them a lifetime of healing while you spend your lifetime behind bars thinking about what you did in taking away their childhood.
Yeah.
She's absolutely right. His sentencing is going to come later, and it appears that it is going to be significant.
Right, exactly. Especially when you consider the fact that the 125 victims who reported these assaults to the state of Michigan will be able to share their impact statements in order to influence the judge's decision in sentencing. Although, again, the judge seems pretty confident in giving him a long sentence. Nasser is also awaiting sentencing on federal charges of receiving child pornography, possessing child pornography, and a charge that he hid and destroyed evidence in the case. So.
So luckily he's in for a world of hurt in terms of the amount of time he's going to get in prison. The details are gruesome as usual in these cases. These young girls, so young, and he undresses them and fondles them under the guise of being their doctor. And as Hallie Reisman pointed out on Twitter, she said she doesn't even want the court referring to him as a doctor. She says Larry's a monster, not a doctor.
Yeah. All right, moving on to some international news. New video shows a North Korean defector who managed to escape, even though he was shot 5 times in the process of doing so. This was a 24-year-old member of the North Korean military, and he did defect, and he did manage to cross over to South Korea, and he is receiving medical attention at the moment. He's expected to survive. But the story is insane, especially when you take a look at the video. Take a quick look at that.
You see the North Korean military jeep speeding past checkpoints, heading towards the border with South Korea. Inside, the soldier bent on defecting. As he gets closer to the demilitarized zone, North Korean soldiers reacting from their post, scrambling towards the vehicle. Once the jeep crashes into a ditch near the line that divides the two nations, he sets out on foot, running, as the North Korean guards begin shooting, dozens of rounds fired at the defector, even as he crosses that crucial line to freedom.
At some point there, the North Korean soldiers see him and see what he's doing, and they start firing at him multiple rounds and hitting him, and he still survives enough to crawl to safety to get behind a wall.
Critically wounded, shot 5 or 6 times, heat signature from cameras show 2 South Korean security forces crawling towards the defector to carry him out and evacuate him to a nearby medical center.
That is great footage and great report by ABC. Check out the link down below for the whole report.
Yeah.
And look, man, that's the fight for freedom. That was amazing.
Oh my God,
he took 5 bullets for freedom. They later took a day later they fly him to a hospital down past Seoul, South Korea, and they removed 5 bullets from his body.
Yeah, they did remove 5 bullets from his body. And just to give you some more information of how many times they shot at him, according to reports, the soldiers fired at him about 40 times, hitting him with bullets from both pistols and an AK-47. Also, keep in mind that there was the demilitarized zone that he crossed into, and at that point, the North Korean soldiers, based on a ceasefire agreement, are not supposed to be shooting at him, but they did so anyway. And so now there's an argument that they, violated the armistice agreement between the two countries. I don't think North Korea cares at all, right?
But look, if you start firing into that zone, you are really risking war. And they did fire into the zone, which they're not supposed to, and they actually physically crossed over as well.
Yes.
So
North Korea has a lot of bluster, and they do a lot of missile tests, but generally they don't cross that zone. If they do, then obviously South Korea is going to cross it back, and then we're back in the middle of a war. So that it was a dangerous moment there. But I think that what they found in the soldier, other than the bullets, is in some ways more amazing.
Oh no, it's insane.
Yeah, because it gives you a sense of what's actually happening inside North Korea.
So, doctors discovered a large number and multiple forms of parasitic worms. Some of these parasites were as long as 27 centimeters, about 10 inches long. One type of worm they discovered is typically found in dogs. And the photo that I'm about to show you is of the parasitic worm. So if you're uncomfortable with that, I just want to give you that warning. But with that said, here's a photo of what the doctors pulled out of his intestines. Okay, so they also found out that he is suffering from hepatitis, and it's a form of hepatitis that usually spreads from, unsanitary hospitals and things like that.
When they use syringes, they shouldn't use needles, etc. So it turns out that a shocking percentage of the North Korean defectors have parasitic worms in their body. Part of the reason is they use human manure for farming, which you're not supposed to do.
Oh.
And there is easy things you can do to avoid these worms, but they don't have any money. They have nothing. So in one case, they did a study of North Korean defectors, and of the women they studied, I think it was all women, 7 out of the 17 had worms in their bodies.
Oh, it's so sad.
And about 10% of the defectors so far have hepatitis B. And it's because they don't take normal precautions that anywhere else in the world that you would take, because North Korea is basically one giant concentration camp. There's 25 million people that live in North Korea. They're hostages to Kim Jong-un and the ruling class in Korea. It is a horrific, nightmarish scenario. And these people are, some guys like this, and by the way, his last name is O. We don't know what his first name is. We know it's not Steve. But people like him are willing to get shot over and over again and risk their lives to just get out of that hellhole.
Yeah.
So North Korea is one of the most intractable problems on the planet. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you start hostilities with them, they could launch all their missiles and kill millions of people at a bare minimum in South Korea, let alone the 25 million people who will get hurt when South Korea, Japan, the United States counter-strike.
Right.
And killing the North Koreans, like Lindsey Graham recently flippantly talked about, hey, it's no big deal, right?
Yeah.
No, you're killing people in a concentration camp. Bombing the North Koreans is terrible. On the other hand, they have enslaved these people for decades. Millions of people suffering under unimaginable circumstances. And so I love to do constructive critique, not just blindly say, oh, that person's bad or that situation is terrible and not give you an answer. But North Korea is a very difficult situation with not a lot of great answers. And I know that war is not the answer, okay? I think the answer is to apply every kind of diplomacy we can to China, which is the only country basically propping up the North Korean regime.
Yes.
And by hook or by crook, we need to get China to agree with us to somehow, without having the North Koreans launch, take out the leadership and free those people. But it is a very, very difficult problem.
We got to take one more break. When we come back, some fun news, including the man behind Reading Rainbow. He's being attacked by Trump supporters. I'll tell you why.
Yeah, but it's not at all racial, as you'll see.
Come right back.
We're both sick. Don't make any jokes about us getting sick together. It happened on separate occasions. Jason was in Vegas. I was in LA. That's what happened.
The subscription to this channel is free. The videos are free. Everything is free. I don't know why I get paid.
We don't know. We're having fun. You remember that 3-letter word? Fun. I crave your name, and I'm going to destroy you.
Respect my name. It's the money, the cars, the clothes, and that's what basketball brags about. That's what football brags about. That's what rap brags about. Those are the items of respect in these communities.
The graphics package at TYT Sports is better than FS1 and Fox.
We pay him in graphic transitions.
Oh, look. First of all, I grab candy all the time. Let's be fucking real.
Where his ball is
But it is wrong that when people take a stand and fight for social justice, that somehow that is turned against them in America.
Wow, can't speak. Am I high? No, but maybe.
Jason Rubin. Looking great these days.
My girlfriend says the same
I
thing.
know.
a lot of vagina.
A lot of vagina.
Yes.
Subscribe to TYT Sports. Complex subject. Nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated.
You said I had small hands. They're not smaller. I never heard that one before.
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited.
Did anybody call for it? Editor.
Need this in an hour. Shared editor too.
I got a bunch of things to go through. No Republican would have ever voted for Bernie. He would have done worse than Hillary Clinton.
So miserable. All right, let me stop myself. Before I say things that are offensive.
If I ran for office, and that would be a trippy day, right? I'd break even more rules than Trump. If I had all the money in the world, I would enjoy that. We have a great show for you. Steve's answer is C. Dave's is A. And the correct answer is, of course, B. You guys are the worst. Here's the story. And it's not funny, but it seems just comically unfair and ridiculous. The Democratic Party just sucks right now. It just sucks because it doesn't know what it stands for. We should probably wrap it up. Young Turks. Couple of tweets. Marcel Chenier says, "Amazing dress, Anna."
Thank you.
Wouldn't normally comment about that sort of thing, but it is super cool. Vintage, Marcel asks?
No, it's not. It's one of my favorite clothing designers. I don't even want to mention the name because someone's going to find something wrong with it. So I'm just going to thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Riley Grady says, "That dude, a fucking Korean Terminator. Go, baby, go." Okay.
And I wanted to, I found the sweater. Can you guys bring that up? So shoptyt.com. It's Black Friday's coming up. We're doing a 10-day sale. So there is Day 8, limited edition, Christmas TYT sweater.
Fun.
Okay, and now...
You said Christmas, Jank. Unacceptable.
It says Christmas in the graphics, too. Bill O'Reilly should be ecstatic. Anyway, now I gotta have it. It's a TYT sweater. It's a TYT Christmas sweater. How do you not have that?
I like sweaters.
ShopTYT.com. And by the way, if you want deals texted to you, 228466. You text deal. I always get confused by this, but you text deal to 228466. Or just go on shoptyt.com. There's sales, and that's the whole point of the 10-day thing. All right, what's next, Anna?
All right. Donald Trump has been feuding with a well-known father in the basketball world, LeVar Ball. Now, LeVar Ball has sons who are playing college basketball at the moment, and one of his sons was arrested in China for shoplifting. Now, Trump claims that he managed to get LeVar Ball's son, along with two other players, back to the United States after they were detained in China, and Trump wanted a thank you from LeVar Ball. Ball has refused to thank him, and it is the most nonsensical feud ever imaginable. It's annoying. I hate even talking about it. But something has come out of this that I thought was interesting. Trump supporters are upset that LeVar Ball refuses to say thank you to Trump. And so they are taking to Twitter to attack LeVar Ball, except they are mistaking LeVar Burton for LeVar Ball. LeVar Burton is a completely different person. He is, you might remember him as the host of Reading Rainbow. That's how I remember him from my childhood.
That does seem pretty offensive.
He's a delightful person. But I
of course, remember him from Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, he was in Star Trek?
Oh, yeah.
That I wouldn't know about. But Reading Rainbow, I remember. Just take a look. It's in a book.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was such a great show.
I loved how in Star Trek they have they had okay graphics back then and stuff, but they just took like a hair comb, not a comb, but like the thing that you put together and made it his eyepiece. Like,
did they really?
Yeah, he's blind, but he can see because of the hairpiece on his head. Geordie LaForge on deck. Anyway, so hilarity ensues.
Okay, so here's what some of the tweets said. Okay, one person says, "You're a has-been actor with a thief for a son, and Trump is the president of the United States. Get the picture."
I'm not sure you got the picture, Mark. Okay.
All right, another person writes, "Washed-up actor, check. Son caught stealing in China, check. Trump still president, check. But none of that is true, huh? LOL."
Yeah, actually, one of them is not true. Actually, two of them are not true.
What's interesting is, like, there's some portion of Trump's base that, like, they don't care what Trump does. Like, they love that Trump is president so they can say that Trump is president. Like, they get off on that. I don't get, okay, yeah, he's president.
Yeah, our problem is that or maybe our solution is that we don't think like the right wing. So if we thought like them, the entire 8 years of Obama, everything would have been like, but Obama's president. What now?
I know.
She was never saw anyone do like, oh yeah, what happened to Mitt Romney? Right? Like, it's in the past, we're done with it. But they never, like, it's the only thing they have to cling on to. The last one I think is the worst. But before we move on to that one, this similar thing happened to me yesterday, where a guy on Twitter said, Anna and Jake don't understand anything about finance. These dumbasses wouldn't even know how to spell derivatives. And he spelled derivatives wrong, which was just awesome. I mean, it is Twitter 101.
Yes.
So this guy's like, oh yeah, I got my facts right. You got a son for a thief, a thief for a son. No, you don't have your facts right. But you like to rub it in anyway. Just buy a clue before you go on Twitter. That's all.
I hate Twitter. I feel like Twitter is just like one big example for why you should just give up on humans, right? Like it's like a collection of the worst people on the planet all in one place. And then like you'll get sprinkles of like interesting smart people that have funny things to say. But the vast majority are like, I have nothing to do with my life, so I'm going to Photoshop stupid shit all day and think I'm funny. Anyway.
I hear you. One last thing on that, and then we'll get to the worst one. So, look, it is like the internet in a lot of ways, the best of us and the worst of us. So there are great, funny stuff that happens on Twitter. There's really smart comments that happen on Twitter, etc. And you get to stay connected with people that you care about. But yes, especially if you're like us and you live on the internet and you've got a lot of haters on the internet, Twitter, sometimes everybody thinks that I'm on Twitter all the time because they're on Twitter all the time.
Yeah.
But I actually just go in and open the door like once in a while.
You like crack it open a little bit.
Yeah, I just crack it open and I look.
Same here.
But it's like going on the whole time and they think I'm in the room and I'm not in the room. And sometimes, most of the times, I now open the room and you have a bunch of lunatics screaming in the room.
No. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's actually flattering, right? Like if you can get past like the juvenile insults or whatever, like there are people who are having nonstop conversations about you while you're out there living your life. Like it's kind of flattering. So I'm amused by it.
Frightening. Yes.
Yeah, I know. There's
because
a lot
every time you open the door and you see like they're like gnawing at each other's like bones and stuff, and they think that you're in the room.
I know. It's so good.
It is a little bit of madness. Anyway,
okay.
last one.
And then Stephen Epps writes, you sure don't do much for the black cause with your unlawful, ungrateful parenting skills.
So they had to make it racial, right? It's not just that LeVar Ball, the actual person who was ungrateful to Trump, is ungrateful. It's not that Trump did a good thing. It's that you're black. And
by the way, like, you guys don't find it a little problematic to, like, pressure people to thank others? Right? Like, why aren't you thanking the president? Thank the president! Thank the president! Just, what? Can you imagine if that happened in the Obama administration? First of all, can you imagine if Obama ever even, like, took credit for something? He wouldn't take credit for anything. You know what I mean? And so, can you imagine if he was, like, as boastful, or even a fraction as boastful as Trump is? Oh, they would lose their minds. They would. Can you imagine if Obama went to a small town in the South where jobs increased a little bit, and he was like, you guys should all thank me. How come you guys aren't thanking me? Everyone should thank. I mean, come on. Yeah, like, just please for a second think about the shoe on the other foot. This is absurd behavior by any president. Don't care about your ideology. Don't care about your political party. You should not be wasting your time demanding a thank you from LeVar Ball.
Okay, last two things on this, so Trump, look, LeVar Ball and Trump had a clown off, and they got into a circus, and they're like, okay, who's going to be the bigger clown? So, look, if I'm LeVar Ball, I go, hey, I'm super happy that my kid's back, wonderful, okay, and be done with it, right? But no, he loves the spotlight, he's Trumpian in that sense. But Trump, you're the president, for you to be like, oh, I wish I hadn't gotten him out, oh yeah, boo-boo, you're such a child. Okay, and lastly, about his supporters. If I went around saying, like, why haven't you thanked Obama for this? Why haven't you thanked Obama for that? Like, how sad. Like, what a sycophantic, sad existence they're like, oh, Obama's the best. Obama's the best. Oh, why haven't you thanked him? You should all be thanking him. He's the greatest.
No,
He's the greatest. That means you're so pathetic. You're like, oh, but the alpha male is so great. I love him.
But here's another ironic part about all of it. It's like, we're the party of small government. We don't want the government to have too much power. And then simultaneously, you have to thank the president of the United States. Like,
bow your head to the government.
What?
Yeah, so, no, we are not going to bow our head to the leader of your government. We're not betas like you. All right, what's next?
All right. I love doing updates on this woman because she's amazing. Earlier this week, a woman in Texas made headlines after a local sheriff called her out for having a bumper sticker that it contained some expletives in regard to Trump and those who voted in favor of Trump. Now, the sheriff, Troy Nels, had threatened prosecution against this woman because of the bumper sticker, but then realized that there were some First Amendment issues there and later took the Facebook post down. But because of this story, it turned out that there was a warrant out for her arrest. She did end up getting arrested, but posted bail. And then there's the other component of the story that I love. She started selling these bumper stickers, and they have sold out. They are now back ordered. So there is Karen Fonseca, the woman that I was talking about, and yes, she is selling the bumper stickers that you see behind her. She even created a new bumper sticker in response to Sheriff Troy Nels, and so that happened. The proceeds from these sales will go toward voter registration drives that will help elderly voters get to the polls.
And just to rub it in a little bit more, one of the people helping her is a Fort Bend area Democrat named Ali Hassan Ali.
I mean, the story is just, there's so many twists and turns.
Yeah, and he says, they'll make more stickers. It's an ode to freedom, so I'm sure the right wingers would like it. Don't tread on me, Semper Fi, and all that stuff, right? I got my right as an American to put anything I like on my pickup truck.
Yeah.
And if the big government wants to try to prevent me from my freedom of speech, well, we do live in Texas, so they can stick it.
So look, I don't know how Republicans in general are reacting to this, but I did read several comments, so this is anecdotal, several comments from Republicans in Texas who are like, what Sheriff Troy Nels is trying to do here is outrageous. Like, they were against the fact that the sheriff was going after this woman, even though they were Trump voters and didn't agree with the bumper sticker.
I like that it says not only F Trump, but F you for voting for him.
I mean, that's strong.
I mean, that lady's got some balls on her.
She does. I honestly, I wouldn't go in that direction because you just don't know what unhinged people would do. And that's your car. I mean, at the very least, I would expect it to get keyed, just based on how crazy people are. But she feels courageous enough to do it, so do you, boo.
Well, she rolls Texas style, and you got to respect that. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have time for the other story, right?
We don't. I'm sorry.
All right. So then let me tell you a couple of things. So yes, I am going to put out a statement in about 7 minutes or so at 8:05 on Jordan Chariton. For the guys on the radio, I'm sorry. There's a reason why it has to be past 8 o'clock Eastern. And it's going to come at 8:05, and tytnetwork.com will have it here. Obviously, YouTube and Facebook where we stream as well. And so I'll clarify the situation. People have very legitimately been asking for clarification, and we will give that to you, and I'll explain why it took a while as well. Other than that, we obviously want you to have a happy Thanksgiving. We're going to be off the next couple of days. But actually, after the statement, I'm also doing Old School with Ben at 9 o'clock Eastern. That'll be much more relaxed and fun times, and we'll talk about fun topics as we always do. Obviously, to become a member, check out Old School live, and then later on tape, Aggressive Progressive later this weekend, tytnetwork.com/join, and we appreciate that. And finally, as we've been telling you throughout the show, we are having this sale. We don't have the F Trump stickers at shoptyt.com, but we do not. But we do have other fun things. Like we have a shirt that says "nasty," like the mayor of San Juan wore, like awesome. For a nasty woman. I wore it around jogging the other day.
You did?
Yeah, because I'm nasty.
I want that shirt.
Well, you should get it. It says shoptyt.com. Okay. Christmas sweater is today, but there's 10 days of sale for Black Friday, so go check out the sale on all the products. There it is. That gives you warm and fuzzy feelings and will also keep you warm, literally. So text deal to 228466 plus shoptyt.com. All right, thank you guys. Have a great, great Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.
Este nene otro caramba como otro estaba. I love you. I love you. Yes. Yes. Okay. Really? Eight o'clock. And whose fault is that? And whose fault is that? Okay. Whose fault is that?
All right. I'm going to give you guys a statement about Jordan Chariton. Of course, people have been legitimately asking about that issue, and we wanted to address it. We wanted to address it much earlier, but we couldn't because we were offering Jordan an ability to take a resignation. He has turned that down, and so I'm here to tell you now that Jordan Chariton has been fired from the Young Turks. We conducted and completed an investigation. It was an internal investigation. We could not talk to a lot of the people involved, including the accusers, because they don't work for us. And for a long time, we did not even know who some of them were. Truth Against the Machine has nothing to do with the Young Turks. That was a side project that Jordan set up. So what we did in our internal investigation was we assumed what would happen even in the best case scenario for Jordan. And so I'm not saying that was a scenario. We did not conduct an investigation as to whether any kind of sexual assault happened. That is for other authorities to deal with. And I'm not saying that the best case scenario is a correct one for Jordan. I'm not saying anything about that because we didn't investigate that. In our investigation, assuming a best case scenario, even in that scenario, here's what we found. So he ran a side business and unfortunately used our company to effectuate that business. Now, Truth Against the Machine was a thing that I thought was a little side project with a couple of volunteers. It turns out that we did not know, nor did he communicate to us, the scale of it, where they were having conferences or conventions, and there were a number of people being paid through this operation. Again, we have nothing to do with Truth Against the Machine, and the fact that any of our resources were used in that regard is deeply troubling to us. Then he unfortunately brought in women that report into him at whatever that organization is, and also some TYT employees into a hotel room, and in other instances, several other intimate settings. That is clearly unacceptable. That is very poor management decisions that he made, and clear firing offenses. So without going into what happened or did not happen in those rooms, for a manager to bring in women into his room, and according to his own admissions, not only internally, but in posts that he then put publicly, have sexual relations with them, is not acceptable. So if you don't agree with that and you think, hey, bosses should be allowed to sleep with people who work underneath them and keep bringing people into their rooms, okay, then we're going to disagree. So we offered to allow him to resign and take a severance, and we gave him all the way to Wednesday because we were trying to do the right thing. And he has decided not to do that. And in the meanwhile, he has attacked us over and over publicly. And so, since he's not resigning, I'm telling you right now that we fired him. He has refused to talk to us. He got an attorney, and he's saying, no, I don't want to hear it. I want you to tell my attorney. And his attorney has done nothing but threats since then. So, what he didn't tell you in one of those posts that he put up, the original one, was that he said that he was doing radical transparency. But he neglected to mention that the woman that he was talking about in very intimate details was someone who reported into him at Truth Against the Machine. That's a pretty important detail to leave out, and not what I would call radical transparency. He then misstated that we didn't do an internal investigation when he wouldn't even talk to us about that investigation. We reached out to him to have that conversation, and he kept referring us to his lawyer. And then, of course, he said things like we did it for corporate reasons. I don't know what that means. Here's why we did it. We did it to protect the people that work here and make sure that we have professional management in place. Now, look, Jordan in the past has done good work for us. He broke a number of stories that were very important. This does not erase that. And it is actually super sad that it has come to this. And I believe in second chances. And so I hope and believe that he can learn from these, what I consider to be mistakes. And I don't want people writing him off forever. Again, whatever happened in those rooms, that is for other people to determine, and it is a really important issue. And I'm not saying anything about that in this regard. So, I hope he can learn from it, and I think he can go on to do good work again. But right now, obviously, we have to do what is right for the employees here and everyone else concerned. So, I'm not going to say anything about anything more about this for now, because he's threatened litigation, and of course,
lawyers want me to read a statement that is on a prompter and carefully crafted and PR machine behind it and all that. No, I'm telling you as I always do. I wrote down my notes and I'm telling you what happened to the best of my ability. And part of it is I actually also want to protect Jordan's privacy. No matter how public he's been and no matter what he's done, there are things that we don't need to talk about any further because this situation is resolved. And I wish it didn't go down this way, but it did. So I hope, like I said, I'm going to reiterate it, that he learns from this and can move past it and go on to do good work and good reporting again. But for now, this is the situation at hand, and we clearly had to make this decision for the purpose of everyone who works here. So I hope you guys understand that, and that's all.